And Melody. And as you can see, we are happy to be here and fresh off of our recent trip to Canada.
To Canada, we were in Kingston, Ontario, which was, fun fact, originally the first capital of Canada way back when. It's now Ottawa. The picture
Mm-hmm.
behind us is from Parliament Hill. We took the opportunity to go drive to the capital city
Mm-hmm.
and stand in all of the really cool buildings. A lot of old architecture,
Mm-hmm.
beautiful, beautiful shots. Kingston, another fun fact, I'm learning things on my tour guide trips, was also called like the limestone capital of
Really?
Canada. A lot of the buildings, yeah, a lot of the buildings we saw that were beautiful were all built out of limestone.
Wow.
I
So
know.
today will be, in addition to fun facts about Canada, just a little bit of a reflection for us with this trip. It was an amazing trip. We attended the Medical Laboratory Professional Association of Ontario annual meeting and conference. And so we just want to debrief with our Superstat listeners a little bit about that recent trip and then just talk about you. And if you're preparing for an upcoming conference, if you're thinking about speaking at a conference, whether here in the United States or somewhere international to you, just things that we've learned. We learned a lot that we want to share with our audience today.
Yeah, and also just talk about some of the future speaking engagements we have coming up as
Mhm.
Superstat, and then really make kind of pitch some ideas for you if you're thinking of traveling abroad and doing a presentation. Be brave.
Yay! So, a little self reflection for me, I would say attending MLPAO was to me more than a conference. It was our second time going international to a place and really stretching ourselves beyond our typical laboratory conference setting. And so, to me, this was a moment more than just a conference, but definitely a moment for me professionally. I walked away with so many insights. And I think meaningful connections. Me and Melanie, I think, really made an intentional effort to connect with individuals in that room, get out of our introverted bubble and really talk to people because we were really serious and, like I said, intentional about making sure that we could understand the state of the healthcare. And if you're not aware, you can look this up. But Canada has a different healthcare structure than we have here in the United States. If you're listening in the United States, they've got a Ministry of Health structure where they believe that healthcare is a basic right for all individuals. And so when you're speaking in areas like that, we really had to be cognizant and mindful of how we're tailoring our message because although there were some very common underlying themes for the laboratory profession, it was also kind of crafted different in the foundation of how they would be able to implement different things like innovation and digital pathology were different in that type of structure. And so it gave me a renewed purpose in advocating for laboratory professionals, not just nationally, but also internationally, because I was able to see that our problems are universal. One thing I loved that we did, and there was an awesome mental fitness coach, which I think both of us had an aha moment. Even with that, we were like, that's a thing. Mental fitness coaching is a thing. But there was an amazing,
Olympians use them,
yes,
so plug for if you decide to take up figure skating or something.
yes, plug if you want to be an Olympian, you need a mental fitness coach.
Definitely.
But it's one of the things that this keynote, who was also a mental fitness coach, talked to us about, which was just taking a moment after meetings or after things happen in your day or during your life or in your week to just reflect on how they went. One of the things that I loved is that Melanie and I didn't just take a moment, we took like an entire car ride
Yeah.
to really deep dive and reflect. And I think I mentioned this during the car ride. It was almost like an onion peeling back. The more I was able to be more introspective of what we had just experienced at MLPAO and the realizations that I continue to have as we continue to have deeper conversations. And so, one of the major takeaways for me is just how hungry our community is, no matter your healthcare structure, for leadership development and for visibility of what we do and our importance in the healthcare structure. So, what was your major takeaway and reflection, Melly?
Yeah, I like how you highlighted our 2 hour drive to Ottawa with like nothing but like straight conversation, and then all the way back to the border. I do think that for me, first of all, Team Canada had some serious Lululemon like flair going on. If you would have seen that guy's jacket from the Olympics, it was insanely impressive. Very very colorful. Um,
Mhm.
so maybe like isn't it Ralph Lauren that does it for the United States? I don't know. I want to,
Yes. I
but
don't think they liked it though. United States had like beef with him. I don't know.
did they really? I don't know. So anyway,
Gymnastics did.
definitely went with more flair forward. We'll see what it looks like this next Olympic cycle. But I really took away a number of things. One, I think from the lab cares perspective, which is the model that Stephanie and I are advocating for and we've worked
Mhm.
on in terms of value based laboratory medicine, that this trip helped solidify for me that when we started this process of making this model, we really wanted it to be something that anybody could use regardless of where they were. And so what we got to see is like how parts of this model can work in different settings, but that other parts are challenging and where they would be challenging. Like Stephanie was saying, like it was very eye opening to sit there and say, oh, innovation's a struggle. Like it takes that, like, what is it, 13 years? One of the individuals told us
17.
17. It could be up to 17 to get new biomarker testing because of the way
Mhm.
that their government is set up to intake new changes into policy. And I was just like, what? That blew my mind.
Mhm.
Blew
Mhm.
my mind. But on the other hand, when we talk about equity, they already believe that access to testing should be a basic human right. And so, which is something we have in our manuscript, right? And so it was such a like refreshing, but also challenging mental exercise of like trying to see like, okay, well, how would this look in being implemented? I also really appreciated the openness of the individuals in the room. A lot of times at conferences, and I don't know if you ever feel this way, but like I feel like everybody's putting on their like pageant clothes, and like kind of there to like rep themselves and their organization and maybe not being as authentic as they could be. And I always like to try to be super authentic if I can be in conversations. Um, and so I really appreciated that with the Canadians. Like I felt like when we were in the room, like they were just very transparent about like, here's where we are. They answered our questions like in a very educational and respectful way. Like I didn't feel like they were like, stupid American. You know what I mean? Like I just felt like they were like really trying to help me understand. And I really appreciated that because I had so many questions. The other cool thing was the way it was organized. Like props to Michelle Ode. Like that was really well put together. I haven't been to a conference where every talk built on itself like that. I don't think I've ever been to a conference that has done that so well. Like from the first talk to like now we're going to talk about the regulatory and legislature, and now we're going to talk about policy, and now we're going to talk about value-based medicine. Like it's flowed so well. That was
Yeah, I think so too. I think obviously huge shout out to Michelle Hode, who is the CEO of the MLPAO, which is kind of like the Canadians' professional organization for their laboratory professionals. But she was such a visionary leader, and she is relentless in her advocacy for laboratory professionals across Canada and beyond, even stretching out into partner with us to join her conference. And she didn't even know really the details of our talk. So serendipitously, it kind of just fit into the perfect prelude, and the conversation after ours was even perfectly timed. And so Michelle and her entire team, Raj, Andrea, her entire team set the gold standard of how to center lab voices and policy at tables, and have a broader healthcare conversation, because they did it extremely well and we felt very comfortable. So thank you.
Yeah, props to Raj, man. She was like one of
Mhm,
the first faces we met when we walked in, like, and
mhm.
she just had like a big smile on her face and was taking pictures and gave us really cool sweatshirts.
Yes.
So like she was just awesome and very just a bright. You could just tell her energy was very bright in the room, and so we really appreciated that. Awesome.
So Mel, if somebody were out there and they're like, "Oh, that was great that you guys went to that conference. You had so much fun. I'm going to be going to XYZ conference coming up soon. Maybe I go to one conference a year because my organization pays for it, or I have to pay out of pocket,
Mhm.
and I really want to make the most out of it." What kind of tips would you give them as they prepare to go to their conference this year?
Are they going just as an attendee or like as a speaker or both? Which one am I talking
Let's do both.
Let's do both.
Like if you're going as an attendee, because lab people, we know,
Okay.
right?
Yeah.
If you're like me out there, honestly, like I have to, and Mel's a little bit different than me in both ways. But as a speaker and as an attendee, like I have to like mentally prep for months.
You do.
like
You're like
like
super
legit.
prep. It's good.
I have to like spend like I know I'm going somewhere. Um, just because I have travel anxiety, sometimes I have like social anxiety. And I have to like get my mind in the space that I'm going to be away from home and around people for like months. And so whatever you got to do, whatever your practice is, figure out you do some introspection, but get in that mind space. But don't let that scare you either, because I alluded to this in the beginning. I feel like I'm proud of us for leveling up. Last year in 2024, Melanie and I traveled across the waters to Amsterdam, Netherlands, for a poster presentation about lab cares. This year, we traveled internationally again to actually speak about lab cares. And so, although I don't think the talk went exactly the way we wanted it to go,
I almost died in the middle. Like if you were there, I couldn't because I couldn't get me like air in. That's bad. It's fine. I'm
I
okay
think
now.
what your audience gets when you talk is exactly what they needed. Only you know exactly what you wanted them to get and exactly how you felt like it should go. Um, but anytime you step outside of your own box and you try to stretch yourself, you're always going to walk away feeling like, I could have done that a little bit better. Why did I step outside of my box? But those are the moments in your life I firmly believe that those are the moments in your life when you feel like you can't do something and you actually do it and you walk away like, oh, cool, I actually did that you grow a little bit. And even if it doesn't go exactly the way you thought it should go, Melly almost died. I couldn't pronounce like a very simple conjugated verb.
Yeah, and I think like from my perspective, I'm different. Like I'm more
Mhm.
loose in the cage, I guess what you would say. Like
Yeah.
I don't over plan my presentations. I practice them. I
Mhm.
review my slides and my notes, things that I want to say, key points I want to say, but then I kind of like to just kind of feel the room and kind of go with
Mhm.
the energy a little bit. I'm also probably more typically my presentations have lots of memes and stuff in them, but
Mhm.
like relatable content and stuff like that. I think though the reason I am that way is because I played sports for a really long time, and my coach used to always say like you have to trust what you know, and you have to if you overthink it, you're gonna mess it up
Mhm.
because it's in your brain now and you've memorized the pattern, whether or not you think you have or not. Like you built this presentation, so you do know it. You've read these articles, you do know it. And there is something to be saying for coming across polished and prepared, right? But I don't
Mhm.
want to be unrelatable to my audience either.
Mhm. Mhm.
And we've all sat through that presentation where it's like an automaton is giving it, and you're like, man, either that just feels so far away from where we are. And so don't over prepare that you're unrelatable, I would just say.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
be able to pivot because pivoting is important. Things happen. I've had my presentation notes just like die in the middle of it. Like I had to like wing the whole second half of the presentation because not wing it, I knew it, but like I couldn't do it with my slide notes. All right, so you just got to be like ready for that. You might die
Mhm.
and need water in the middle. Thank you to Rich for saving my life in the middle of that. And then I
Side
would
note.
yeah, you're the real MVP. If I
Mhm.
would say that in terms of attending, You should always go to sessions that you know nothing about.
Mm-hmm.
Go to learn something. If you go to only the things that might interest you, you're going to leave there like learning what you kind of maybe already knew and maybe a few new things. But if you
Mm-hmm.
make it a point to take one or two classes that you really like know nothing about, you're going to get a whole new fresh perspective, and also realize that there's some other cool people that are, smart in different ways than you. So I think that's always a good thing to do. Those would be my recommendations.
Yeah, I would say, if you're going internationally, right, pack smart,
Mm-hmm.
understand the time zones,
Be
try
ready
to
for the
make
questions at the border. My goodness. Like, that was intense.
understand how to get across the border because that's important if you want to get back home, clearly.
Clearly.
But in addition to prep your materials, understand how you want to be presented if you are bringing things like physical business cards, or if you want to do a QR code, or if you want people to connect with you on LinkedIn afterwards. Make sure you have all of those things kind of polished and together. Um, Understand what your goal is. If you're going to any conference, whether it be laboratory focused or anything else, like what is my goal? What do I want to learn? Who do I want to meet? What do I want to walk away from this conference with? I try to make myself like one goal. Like there's one person always at a conference where I want to speak to that person. Usually it's the keynote or some type of scientific speaker. And I give myself a goal to stretch outside of myself and go shake their hand and understand more about their talk or connect with that individual so we can get back. And then when you do make connections, actually follow up. That's where the real magic happens is after the conference because everybody's meeting a ton of people at conferences. After the conference, actually follow them on LinkedIn or actually send somebody a message or an email and keep those connections going.
Yeah, and my recommendation on that too, to your point, is like mine maybe not necessarily like meet someone like the keynote, but my goal is always like to not waste the dead time. And by that
Mm-hmm.
I mean like there's going to be time where you're having breakfast or lunch or whatever. Like do the non-lab thing. Don't sit by yourself in a corner or like at a
Yeah.
table by yourself. Make an
Yeah.
effort to go to a table with people you don't know
Yeah.
and get to know them and introduce yourself. Like that's going to be one of the best things you can do.
And one last piece of feedback that I have is don't be afraid to go up to the speaker that you see that you really enjoyed their talk. Speakers love to hear feedback after their talk. I was actually in the lobby one day waiting for mail after our talk, and so many people came up to me and gave us great feedback on the talk we had given and what they had taken away from it. And that was just great to hear because, again, we had some mishaps during our talk, but it was great to hear from the attendees in the audience what they were able to get from it. And I just love that they had the courage to come up to me as a speaker and give me that feedback like face to face. And so don't be afraid to go and talk to the speaker and give them your feedback or give them your thoughts or continue, like I said, continue that conversation because they love that.
Yeah, definitely. And I would say if you're thinking about going international for a conference and you're like, man, I have something I want to talk about, but I don't think anybody's going to care. I'm not going to put this abstract in. I challenge you to do it. You won't know until you submit. And
Hmm.
we do that a lot. Sometimes we just put things in and we're like, we'll see what happens. iChom happened that way for us.
Yeah.
Honestly, like I submitted the abstract for the poster and I was like, I don't know if anybody will care about this. And then we got picked up. And so like you never know what doors will open if just go boldly and
Yeah.
take the first step. That would be my encouragement.
Yeah. So I'm going to say this. I said this in our talk, but I'm going to say it again. We love the theme of being behind the scenes heroes, but every once in a while we gotta step out to be seen. You can't be behind the scenes and out in front at the same time. And so go boldly, take risks, be intentional, and let's all be advocates in our areas and our other areas
Mhm.
for the lab profession. We had a great time in
Yeah,
Canada, and I'm excited to see where we continue to go.
that's right. 10 for 10 out of for Canada. We would definitely go back.
10 for 10 would recommend.
You would recommend, that's right. Definitely would. Like it's beautiful. My goodness.
Yes.
Also, we obviously love to speak at conferences, and so if you would like Superstat to come and visit your conference, you can contact us on our website at www.labcares.org, and you can also check out our content and our papers and things like that on the website as well. So check us out.